Dizzy Dreamer ASMR. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dizzy Dreamer ASMR. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Tonight I thought I'd do just a little semi-inaudible whispering video. This video won't be too long because I do get out of breath when I whisper. I just find the breath control kind of hard. But the book that I thought we'd read tonight is a history book that I bought for one of the courses that I took in my undergraduate degree. It was like Tudor and Stuart periods in England or something like that. I forget. I'm really not that big of a English history buff. I do find it fascinating, but I don't know too much about it. I forget a lot of what I learned back then. So this book is called Sources and Debates in English History, 1485 to 1714. This is edited by Newton Key and Robert Bisholes, and the publishing company is Wiley Blackwell. So I thought that I would just, read some passages and kind of highlight some things. This book is never going to be sold to another person. I might end up donating it eventually, but I don't think anybody's going to really want this one because I'll show you it. Let me move my microphone for a second. So it's formatted in this way where it gives you a little passage about something, a trend in history. Each chapter is a different theme, and then it talks about some questions that they would So she surpassed the virtue of humility, for it is well known to diverse yet living, that she utterly abhorred all kind of pride, both in apparel and otherwise. She could never abide and bear any filthy or unseemly talk of scurrility, bawdry, or uncleanness, neither years, she after turned bawd, a course of life more hateful in tempting and seducing youth than the other in committing sin. One who makes but spoil and ruin of herself and the other of a multitude. For, quoth she, I myself have had 10 several women. 10 several women is a lot of women, retaining to my house for that purpose. Some were men's wives, which repaired thither both. What is this word? Thither both by appointment and at convenient hours when their husbands might least suspect or have knowledge of their absence. And these women did I first tempt to fall to their fall, some by persuading them they were not beloved of their husbands, especially if I could at any time have note of any breach or discontent between them. Others that their husbands maintained them not sufficiently to express their beauty, and according to their own deserts. They were as fearful to offend me as their husbands should have knowledge of their offences, and these allowed me a weekly pension for coming to my house, to supply my house and make spoil of young maids who were sent out of the country by their friends here with hope to advance themselves. I went weekly to the carrier's, where, if the maid liked me, I so wrought with the carrier that she seldom left me until I had brought her to be as bad as I proposed, which effected. Every one of them I compelled to give me 10 shillings a week out of their gettings. Oh my goodness. Having, as I said, seldom less than 10 whose bodies and souls I kept in this bondage. Besides, I confess I was continual receiver of theft stolen, but in all this it was badly got, so it was worse consumed, for nothing of it did prosper with me, whereby, quoth she, I acknowledge I have deserved death in the highest degree, but for this which I am condemned, heaven that knoweth best the secrets of our hearts knows I am innocent. Wow. But who knows not that in evil there is a like impudence to deny, as there is a forwardness act, in which we believe her whom the law hath found guilty, and having thus truly related her own confessions, we proceeded to the matter of execution. On Monday, being the last day of February, she had notice given her that in the afternoon she must suffer death, and a preacher commended unto her to instruct her for her soul's health, who labored much with her for the confession of the fact, which she still obstinately denied, but made great show of repentance for her life past, so that about 2 of the clock in the afternoon she was stripped from her ordinary wearing apparel, and upon her own smock, and put a kirtle, a canvas pitched clean through. sister socioeconomically? How do you think the social status of the victims affected the case? The examination of Philippa Flower, sister of Margaret Flower and daughter of Joan Flower, before Sir William Pelham and Mr. Butler, justices of the peace, February 4th, 1618, which was brought in at the assizes as evidence against her sister Margaret. She saith that her mother and her sister maliced the Earl of Rutland, his countess, and their child, because her sister Margaret was put out of the ladies' service of laundry and exempted from other services about the house, whereupon her said sister, by the commandment of her mother, brought from the castle the right-hand glove of the Lord Henry Ross, presumably a son who died young, as the Earl was granted the title of Lord Ross in 1617, which she delivered to her mother, who presently rubbed it on the back of her speared rudderkin, and then put it into the hot boiling water. Afterwards she prickled it often, buried in the yard, wishing the Lord Ross might never thrive. And so her sister Margaret continued with her mother, where she often saw the cat Rudderkin leap on her shoulders and suck her neck. She further confessed that she heard her mother often curse the Earl and his lady, and thereupon would boil feathers and blood together, using many devilish speeches and strange gestures. The examination of Philippa Flower, the 25th of February, 1618, before Francis Earl of Rutland, Francis Lord Willoughby of Eresby, Sir George Manners, and Sir William Pelham. She confesseth and saith that she hath a spirit sucking on her in the form of a white rat, which keepeth her left breast, and hath so done for 3 or 4 years. And concerning the agreement betwixt her spirit and herself, she confesseth. This is a hard word to say. She confesseth, and with that when it came first unto her, she gave her soul to it, and it promised to do her good and cause Thomas Simpson to love her, and she would suffer it to suck her. Holy crap, what is this about? What is sucking her? That is just so strange. Which she agreed onto, and so the last time it sucked was on Tuesday at night, the 23rd of February. Well, I am sure we have all learned a little something, perhaps. This is a very interesting book. Let me close it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely learned something new. And let me know what else you guys want to see from me. I have a few videos coming out soon that I'm excited about. I'm planning on doing another WWE trivia video. My audio cut out for this part of the video, so I'm just re-recording it right now. But yeah, I have lots of exciting things coming out in the next few weeks, so stay tuned for those. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great night's sleep.